Morning, everyone. Hope we're doing very well. Let's start with a number. 3,000. 3,000 is what I think, using an average tenure, so where are we? What's the average number of years experience do we have in the room? There's 200 HR professionals in this room, and if we take an average, we get 3,000 years worth of HR experience in this one room, which is quite something to take advantage of today. So for a moment, just raise your hands if you're sat next to someone that you don't already know. Who's sat next to someone they don't know? Come on, there must be more of you than this. Right, and in 1 second, just take one moment to turn to that person. Just introduce yourself, your name, the company that you come from. Please do that now to start the networking. Fantastic, and this is an asset that you have for the whole day. I think there was maybe more people in the room who didn't know each other than actually admitted with their hands. But thank you for kicking that off. We will have various moments during the day so you can continue that conversation. But imagine when you wake up this morning, there'll be certain things in your mind, certain issues that you're working on that you have not yet solved. And chances are there will be someone in this room who's been through exactly that issue, who knows the answer. So your job is to find them. Unlock that learning today. Now, I've already been introduced by Billy. I'm Adrian Seligman. I look after a number of our client-facing teams at top employers. And one of the beauties of this particular program is the data that we get from the participants in the program. Billy already mentioned 2,300 organisations are certified. They're certified across 121 different countries, and that means they're not stuck in any particular geography, they're not stuck in any particular sector. And it gives us access to all that information on world-class HR, and that's something that we can distill and bring back in the form of our annual trends reports as a bit of a pulse as to what's going on in HR. We've been touching on many of those themes already, so Rasmi Shweta, thank you so much for the introductions as well. You'll see some of the themes already mentioned pop back, which should be very reassuring to you. If you see stuff here that you're not already aware of, that's probably a bit of a problem. So we're not aiming to shock, but hopefully we'll aim to guide a little bit with some of the combined experience from those certified top employers around the world. But let's start with where we are today, because here in India, you could argue that when it comes to talent, we are in the most exciting place in the world right now. India, not only putting vehicles on the moon, on the other side of the moon, fairly recently, India's growth rate is nothing short of spectacular. And if you look at that photo behind me there, that's showing India's infrastructure. And if we go back, just reverse 10 years. If you look back at India 10 years ago, half of your roadwork here in India didn't exist. There was 380,000 kilometres worth of road in India. There's now 720,000 kilometres just in the last 10 years. Airports is another fun proxy for growth. 70 airports 10 years ago, 140 now. And this is one that I really laugh at because some of you may be familiar with UK news, but in the UK, we've been trying to get ourselves one new runway at one of our airports for 20 years, and we haven't achieved it. In fact, there hasn't been an airport built in the last 50 years in the UK. You guys have doubled it. It's nothing short of amazing. And when it comes to people, also, you have the most exciting population in the world, not just in terms of absolute numbers, but in terms of their age. So looking around the world, many countries are dealing with the ageing population problem. That's not the case here in India. The average age is 27. It's very different from other places around the world. And if you jump to 2030, there's supposed to be 1 billion adults, working age adults, in our market here in India. At the same time, it can be a bit scary. Shweta was talking about the impact of AI and what's going to come next. And the World Bank shared some great data recently looking at technology, AI, and job roles. So which job roles do we have today which are not going to be here tomorrow? And if you look around the world, the percentages here change remarkably. So if we go east, not sure if this is east, but if we go east for a moment and look at China, 77% of the job roles that exist today in China will not exist tomorrow. The number is high in India as well. It's 67% for India. And in other markets, it can be different. So this is where I can fly the UK flag because it's just 39% in the UK, and that's put down to many more creative roles involved in that service type industry, which should prevail, at least for the near future. And that's a little bit an intro for what we're going to be sharing today with the 2024 Trends Report from this cohort of top employers. There's a real tension, as you see here, between technology on the one hand and people on the other. It was described a moment ago as human-centric, and it's exactly what we have here. Recentering around the human is the trend. And that's on us often as HR leaders. That's what our C-level sponsors are looking for from us, how to strike this correct balance, take advantage of the opportunities, but look after the human at the same time. So, without further ado, let's dive in. The first trend here then is empowering through AI. Surprise, surprise, AI comes back here again. And I'm not going to talk about ChatGPT, all the different tools that are out there. The growth of these tools have been nothing short of mind-blowing. In fact, just the night before I came here, actually, my daughter was on my phone on ChatGPT. She was using it to create amusing poems about her dad. So this spelt the end of screen time for that evening. But it was amazing what she could produce. You know, she's not yet a poet, but with ChatGPT, she can be a poet. Next time, we'll get her into some more amusing content. But the big question here comes not from what these things like OpenAI, what can they do or what could they do? It's moving to what should they do? And this is back on us now in HR as well, because often we're seen as the custodians of this. But let's have a look at a quick video. Hopefully. This did work in the test.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better.
And what are the people going to do?
That's the $64,000 question.
I believe this is going to be one of the biggest challenges we face in the coming decades.
People who are not just unemployed, they are unemployable.
Just remember that last one for a moment. People are not just unemployed, they're unemployable. That's potentially the change that's ahead of us. That's Yuval Noah Harari. I saw him speak at a conference last year. He's utterly amazing. He's the guy that wrote Sapiens, that book, and many other very interesting books after that. But imagine now people who are not yet on the job market right now, but the distance between the gap they currently have to getting on the job market is going to exponentially increase. And in fact, Elon Musk up the top there as well, in that particular speech that he was making, was talking about the need for a universal income for individuals, whether you have a job or not. That could be how fast the market pivots here, where we're enabled to be so productive in those of us involved in work. It'll be on us to support those not in work, because work will just not be accessible in the future. How do we navigate this? This is very much something here for us in HR.
There will be fewer and fewer.
I need to have that one again. Within the report itself, we're looking into various different things. So the ethics is one big one. Our research team right now is actually working on an ethical framework for HR to help guide us here as well, because that's where just as a group we really can come together to help each other out. The human-to-human connection is, of course, critical, because go back to what I was saying there about people who just can't access the job market, and think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, our job is often really an integral part of our own identity, along with our families as well. So what if we can't have that? What if we don't have that anymore? What does that mean? So the human-to-human connection, we do know that cannot disappear. I'm someone old enough to remember when e-learning came in, and we all thought that spelt the end of face-to-face training. Of course it didn't, because we love coming together like we are today. That's not going to change, and it won't change with AI, but we still have to find the path. And then finally, company strategy is something not to ignore. I noticed nobody put their hands up when Shweta asked who's not looking at AI right now. And all companies are. They're doing it normally in three kind of ways. So there's productivity enhancements, the kind of tools that can help us write content faster, produce images quicker. All of that's going on right now in terms of productivity. Software engineering is a very big one, a great one for us here in Bangalore today as well, but it can help us code faster. That's a huge gain. But then finally, what you also see a lot from investment companies right now is that if you can bring AI into your product or into your service, it increases the value of your organization. Just the perception of AI being the future, being something of value, is being driven right from the top, right from investors, all the way through organizations. And so this will just rocket through as it is already. Now, what about in terms of getting it right? It's often helpful to get some inspiration for people who are very comfortable in the space. No hands went up earlier, which is great, so you guys are all very comfortable as well. I must admit, I wasn't yet. I was a bit of a laggard. thinking about our own business, and I'm trying to surround myself with people who are great at it. This is one such person. She doesn't work for top employers, but this is Sinead Boville, and she's a tech entrepreneur, but also a futurist. And she's the person that CNN will call up for advice on certain things. So right now, one of the big US stories is, will AI play a role in the US election? Will some sort of deep fake video really sway an electorate as it goes, rife on social media? She comes in to comment on these kind of things. What's also interesting is she's also advising our next generation, and she chooses a different medium, different words to do that. So one day it's CNN, the next day it's TikTok. Let's see if this one plays.
IMF just released its latest report on artificial intelligence and the future of work. And here's what you need to know about AI for your future. You're going to want to save this post. Knowing how to work with artificial intelligence tools is so important. So the report shows that 40% of all jobs in the world are exposed to AI, or 50% of the jobs that are exposed to artificial intelligence. It's because AI actually makes those occupations and the tasks that that job does much more productive, and therefore increases the value of that job. Here's what this means for you. You have to know how to use these tools. AI is going to make it for you in like 4 seconds, and that's going to make you a lot more productive and efficient. A lot of truth to the expression, it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's somebody using AI. So here's my advice. Start playing around with these artificial intelligence tools and want to try to be the person on your team, in your division, that understands AI. It's going to help the company transition to this next AI age.
So maybe it's okay that my daughter's playing around with ChatGPT. She can help us here. But the clear message there is to get involved with AI. There's no hiding from it. Our second trend then is all about purpose. And purpose has been around, I think, for many years now. So companies started to define a purpose. It became important for our attraction strategies. But then it really needed to be activated. And that was then on leaders as well. And that's where there's a bit of a lag. Some companies went very early on this. And we'll start off with a little bit of inspiration from Patagonia.
Instead of going public, you could say, we're going purpose, Chenard wrote in a public letter. Instead of extracting value from nature and transforming it into wealth for investors, we'll use the wealth Patagonia creates to protect the source of all wealth.
So what Patagonia do, they have the Patagonia Purpose Foundation. And so they run their business. At the end of the year, they decide how much of their profit they're going to reinvest in the future growth of the business. Any money left over is diverted into this fund, and the fund goes to responding to environmental crises around the world. And it really joins up what it is that they do, which is helping people explore the earth, with the company as well. And they activate that through fantastic leadership from someone who decided to divert the whole profit of that enterprise through to making the world a better place. But this is something for all of us, no matter what our product is. If you look within the report, what you see is that employees, they demand authentic leadership here when it comes to purpose. And you think about Gen Z, which is much more attuned to purpose and wanting to make a difference in the world. And I'm certainly not saying that some of the older people like myself are not attuned to that, but it becomes more and more important with each generation. They can smell it if it's not there. If it's inauthentic, they know. So we have to help our leaders activate purpose better and deeper in the business. And one of the traits that's coming out from a leadership perspective here is empathy. That's something that's recognised. In the past, it wasn't necessarily one of the most glorious leadership traits. I think it's always been deemed to be good. But when it comes to purpose activation, empathy helps enormously with authenticity. And that's, again, something that we can help leaders with around the business as we think about our exec sponsors of the programmes that we put in place. Now, there's a lot of work to do here. This might be a bit of an eye test. There's a lot of screens in the room, but don't worry too much about all the words on the screen. This comes from McKinsey. There's 2 bits of data. They're easy because they're the same number. 85% on one side, 85% on the other side. So if I stand here for a moment, I'm on the executive leadership team side of this particular chart. What it's saying is that as an exec leader, I'm very comfortable in the way that my company communicates its purpose, activates its purpose. I really feel it on a day-to-day basis. But if I'm over on this side, I'm now a line manager, I'm a frontline worker within the organisation, and actually 85% of people like me don't feel it on a day-to-day basis. So this was a study in the last couple of years that happened. So you see the gulf between the two populations in organisations right now is vast. So we've not yet cracked it. So it's really not just on us, of course, but for our organisations. How can we help our organisations unlock and activate purpose? And I would say it does not matter what it is that you do. You don't have to be a company like Patagonia. And in a moment, we're going to have a look at a video from DHL, who are another global top employer. DHL moves stuff from A to B. Letters, parcels, packages, horses, Formula One cars, they will move it. That's what they do, logistics business. What they also do, one of their employees, Ben, is going to tell us about now.
Well, hi, my name is Ben Somerville and I'm the Senior Manager for Customs and Regulatory Affairs for DHL Express. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, and I look after the Go Help disaster response team for the Oceania region. Once in 2015, I was travelled to Fiji after the tropical cyclone Winston had ripped through the island. And as we were going through customs with one of my colleagues, there was a customs officer there that was checking my passport. And he looked up at me and he looked down at the uniform, this uniform that I'm wearing, and he burst into tears and said to me, "Thank you so much on behalf of all of the people of Fiji for what you, DHL, are doing." And I just couldn't believe it. It had such a profound impact on me and really stayed with me to this day. The work I love with Go Help is I really love making a difference, a positive impact to people's lives.
So remembering here, Ben is not a specialist working in disaster response. He works clearing customs problems to move these packages from A to B. And this program is accessible to anyone in DHL. We had a lovely example from SAP as well, and this is all about moments that matter. If you can unlock a moment that matters, like this moment that Ben talks about in your business, what you get in terms of discretionary effort, loyalty, the intent to stay in your business just goes off the charts of almost any other policy or practice that you can put in place. And that's the power of purpose activation. If you get it right, you will inspire loyalty in your business, like no other thing. Now, let's move on to our third trend within this particular report. So this one's called Dialogue for Transformation. And now, so think about employee listening here. And employee listening's, again, been around for a while, but it really systematized employee listening. The first question, though, is how good are we at listening?
Being a good listener is one of the most important and enchanting life skills anyone can have. Yet few of us know how to do it, not because we're evil, but because no one has taught us how.
We don't teach active listening. We don't teach executives or any employee in our company how to make someone else feel heard, feel understood, feel seen.
The truth is that mastering the art of listening involves a whole host of other skills. You need to do more.
And of course, the question for us in HR is, we're obviously, I think, pretty good at listening. We have something of a reputation of being good at connecting with our employees, being the person that's there to help, whether it's with their career or a personal problem. Within this room, the skill set is high. But now think about your line managers as well. How good are they when it comes to listening? And again, like lots of these trends, being very human-centric with this, there's nowhere to hide with this one. So our talent expects this. You see, employees demand that kind of voice. They want to be heard within the organisation. People want to make a difference, of course. The other thing is, in fact, Shweta and I were talking about this earlier. There's an example we'll share from top employers, but there's also a fantastic example from SAP here as well. When you bring together people to solve complex business problems, so where it's outside the normal job description, magic happens. So this idea of collective intelligence coming together, we will share an example on that in a moment. But it doesn't just happen by itself, and that's the final point. So how do you formalise it? How do you help people come together to solve these complex problems that we have? Like I say, you can't hide from it. So the talent in our teams right now, you'll recognise these statements that are up right at the moment. They want to be listened to. This one about using all of my talents is an interesting one, especially as we think about skills-based organisations. You could start with the actual role profile. But that's only half the story, because the talent in our business, they've got another set of skills as well. So how do we identify them, help them move on to new projects, new career moments in there as well? And of course, this piece of meaningful work will go nowhere, and that's where the purpose piece links into this as well. Just one little example, and I'll point you in the direction of another one from SAP in a moment. This is from top employers. So when we got back from the pandemic, like all of you, we were wondering, how are we going to get work done in the business? We've all experienced this very new normal. And so rather than what we would have previously done, which is probably put some job titles in a room to solve it and then unveil something magical upon the business, we got together a cross-cluster, cross-geography group to really solve this on how they wanted to get work done in the business. And I remember being just amazingly surprised by the innovation, because the model itself is not revolutionary. So it starts with the human in the center. So what is it that I like doing? Do I need to walk my dog in the morning, take the kids to school? Not all these needs can be satisfied, but as a team, we can think about them. It then thinks about what are the team outcomes. So how can we really coalesce around the team to make it work as best possible and achieve our team goals? And then, of course, that needs to roll up then into the company piece as well. But what was really fun that came out of it was it started, not here, but it started with the beliefs. And you see those here on the other side. So the idea that in our company we are all professionals, that says something. It also says that all professionals want to be successful. And that takes away a lot of the noise around flex work, where there's perhaps a lack of trust around individuals. We ignore that because we assume you're a professional in the business. And then it shows what success is, which is back to business results, impact in the world, while looking after our well-being as well. So that was a real eye-opener. It was much better, much more beautifully crafted than anything previous job titles could have done in a room together. Shweta also mentioned to me earlier this morning that SAP went through exactly the same process with, I think it was a group of 100 change ambassadors on the same subject, and it's produced in an HBR article, which is going out today or tomorrow, nodding, this week, HBR article on how SAP did this as well with change agents in their business. So, trend 4, well-being. This is a big one. We'll start with a video.
It's good to see you. It's so great to be with everyone again.
Yeah, it is.
How have you been?
I'm not good. I haven't been good. No one really hears me, you know?
I'm good. Yeah, things are good.
That's good.
It can be hidden well-being. And if you look at, there's many organizations will look at engagement, well-being, loneliness. We're not doing great. Now, whether we were doing really brilliantly before is a question. When I say before, I mean before the pandemic. But right now, well-being can be more hidden than it used to be. Working perhaps at home, managers not great at connecting. We just talked about listening. If managers are not great at having that conversation to really understand how someone is doing, it can be completely hidden, as seen in that particular clip. If you look at Gallup, produces a fantastic bit of data on here. It's all about employee perceptions of what we do as HR leaders when it comes to well-being. And I don't have the graph here, but we can dramatise the graph. So if I'm at 2010 here right now, it went up and up and up in a really nice way. It went slightly up to the right, and we like graphs that go up to the right. They normally have good news in them. So the perception of what we were doing in HR in terms of well-being offerings to our employees was going nicely up over the years. And then the pandemic happened, and it rocketed. It went up to the ceiling. They thought we did a great job. We rehomed people. We kept people safe. I know here in India, on campuses like this, we were vaccinating families as well. We really stepped up. Unfortunately, we also reset expectations from our employees here because it's crashed after that. It's actually lower than where it was in 2019 right now. And that's partly because we reset expectations, but it's also a bit of a problem. Our teams have really high expectations when it comes to well-being. We did a deep dive on this for that very reason. So a separate research piece looking at linking engagement to well-being. And we were basically trying to help top employers with where should they invest? Which kind of well-being initiatives should be invested in to have the biggest bang for your buck in terms of helping out when it comes to engagement and really getting more people to be able to thrive in the work environment. The first piece that came out, I'm just going to very quickly highlight it, and I'll leave you with a QR code, so if you want to go deeper into it, you can do that as well. The first piece was to do with the number of wellbeing programs. And what we saw, again, nice graph, it goes up to the right, like we like, but then it plateaus. So within our survey environment, there's around 40 different policies that touch on wellbeing. You don't need to do all of them, was what we found. So I don't have a magic number for all of you in terms of just exactly how many you need, but it could be that your organisation is over-investing here. And when HR budget is a little bit under scrutiny right now, not in all companies, but this could be something to look at. Are we doing enough or are we not doing enough right now? And try and really get that right. The second piece then, I've got a different graph here. So this one on the x-axis, we're looking at adoption of certain policies across the top employers cohort. And on the y-axis, we're looking at the impact of the actual policy on engagement from low, medium to high. And I won't go through the whole thing, but a couple of ones. This one up here, so organisational total wellbeing strategy. You can see there, it's below 80% in terms of adoption. Often we have a wellbeing strategy in place, but when you get it right, it has the most amazing impact on engagement. And of course, some of you know this, the bigger company you work in, the harder this is to deliver because it's cross-cluster in HR. Every single cluster can impact on a total wellbeing strategy. And so often in big companies, we're not really well set up to deliver something like this. But get it right, and you absolutely get the bang for your buck. The second one then, and this goes back to our video clip, which I'm going to touch on, is wellbeing being addressed in performance conversations. Look where this one is. So 58%, ooh, I'm stuck. 58% of the top employers cohorts here have implemented a practice like this already. So that means that many haven't. But if you do, if you can help your line managers connect with their teams on the wellbeing conversation, then it has the largest impact, in fact, on engagement. It's not easy, not all our line managers, they're not all certified life coaches. This can be a terrifying conversation for certain people. But what can we do in HR to give conversation frameworks, a bit like not frequently asked questions, but what are the frequent things that come up from someone who's maybe not doing well? What are the signs? At least so that they can flag it and then come to us, come to a mentor, come to someone to actually try and help flag that, because there's a big problem here to solve. That's the QR code for the Wellbeing Deep Dive. If you don't have a moment to grab it now, we also have these codes as well at the breaks on the stand, so feel free to get the deep dive. There's a lot more to it than that, but just worth mentioning because it's such a burning issue for us right now. Now, the last one then, so trend 5, this is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. The trend's all about the broadening of the work here. And we will kick off just with the results of the report. So I'm just going to build this one. So this piece about it being beyond demographics is one thing. The analytics are not yet up to speed with D&I. They need to advance faster. There's a tech challenge here as well. Some of you will be using AI in your recruitment activities, but of course it's us that programs the AI. So how do we ensure diversity if we have AI systems doing all the sifting and the sorting of talent? And if you look at every stage of the talent life cycle, that can be a challenge, something to watch out for. But DEI has to work for everybody. There's a great breakout session with Chet later on looking at neurodiversity, which we'll touch on in just one sec. But I did also want to share, often you do these kind of things and we talk about all the problems for HR, but just for a moment, look at where we've come here. And I'm rocketing, unfortunately, towards 50 myself. But if I go back 50 years, it's not quite 50 years ago, when my mum was pregnant, she was working as an air hostess for the company that became British Airways. Within her contract, it said, when you become pregnant, that's the end of your job. That was in her contract. So she fell pregnant with me. This is good news. I get to be here with you today. But she lost her job. And that wasn't particularly considered weird 50 years ago, but that was the situation as it was. If I go back 30 years now, this is when I was at university, and something very odd happened there, which fortunately we noticed at the time what was going on, but I could not cook. My parents were very concerned I would die going to university, so they put me in a halls of residence because this provided food, 3 meals a day, and they knew that I'd be okay. And in this hall of residence, there were 2 wings, north wing and a south wing. And we all got on very well together, especially everyone on north wing. There was a bit of rivalry you can imagine between the two. But at some point we noticed there was a real difference here. On north wing, people were very much kind of like me, same kind of background as me. And if I'd been on South Wing, I'd also been with a similar kind of crowd, same kind of background as me. And we asked the university about this, thinking this is a bit odd. And it was more of a kind of economic profile here. And what they'd done at the time, they'd asked what our father's job was, so not our parents' job, our father's job, and they'd sorted us according to what they thought. This is 30 years ago. I'm quite pleased that we noticed it and flagged it. I'm sure this doesn't happen anymore. 10 years ago, I used to work for an assessment company involved in assessment solutions, and we were working with one of the big 4 consulting firms out there, the kind of consulting firm that would hire you in the past if you went to this university or that university, but definitely not these universities over here. And we were ripping up that completely because all of those firms were fishing in the same pond. It's probably exactly the same with tech talent right now. So you have to go broad to find the talent that we need. The traditional ways that we did it in the past just don't work anymore. We're going to have a look at neurodiversity just for a moment. There is a deep dive on this later on. But it's becoming quite a big thing. And at Top Employers, we're working on a diagnostic for how to help workplaces adapt to bring more neurodiverse people in. You can see the numbers up there at the moment. So 10 to 20% of the population identifies some way. So this is being, say, autistic, dyspraxic, having dyslexia. My wife has very bad dyslexia. She's dyscalculus as well. She was told she was stupid at school. Okay, this is not what we want to happen in our work environments. And very unfortunately, 30 to 40% of those individuals are not in work. It says there, that's the unemployed stat. There's also another horrible one, which is being underemployed, which is very common within this particular group. So if you're interested in this particular subject, dive into that one later on. SAP also has a fantastic program on autism, which was mentioned earlier as well. So if you'd like to know more about that, the SAP team will have these very fetching blue t-shirts, which I'm going to try and bag one at some point. So have a chat with them about the autism program as well. This helps us go broad when it comes to diversity and unlock talents. We've got one video here from Wells Fargo, which is a company doing it very well at the moment. Oh, my apologies.
The program facilitates a more considerate, accommodating, skills-based hiring model that is accessible by design.
I was living in a group home. It was a very hard life. No matter what I did or tried, I couldn't get out of the situation. And I wished desperately that I could go out on my own and earn money and get my own place and get independent. Interviews are a struggle that I shared with many others on the spectrum. So I have two mentors.
I am responsible for making sure that big data information from thousands upon thousands of our customers moves smoothly in large volumes from point A to point B. I really enjoy it. At Wells Fargo, I don't tend to feel as other. Because we're such an underserved community, a lot of the really skilled, high-functioning people, they're just sitting there waiting for a chance like me. And I think that's the amazing thing about this program at Wells Fargo.
Our son found a company with a team of people who prioritize doing what's right over doing it the same old way, and who put in the extraordinary work that was needed to be able to include him in their organization. His life will never be the same as a result.
So yeah, do dive into that session later on today if this is something that you're looking at within your business right now. So that brings us to the end of our kind of whistle-stop tour around the 2024 trends. As you can see, it's all about this tension, but very much with the human in the middle. Those organizations that can get this right, link their employer brand to the human, will win, no doubt. Navigate those challenges, that blank space that comes after AI. Shweta, thank you for that. What I would say, I'm going to leave with a quote. I love this quote. I think as a human race, we've grown into this quote. It's from E.O. Wilson, who's a sociobiologist in the US. The real problem of humanity, the real problem of technology is that sometimes it doesn't work. Let me see if I can remember it. The real problem of humanity is that we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval structures, and godlike technology. It's taken us a while to grow into this, but if you take that as a job description for HR right now, how do you navigate that? That must be one of the most exciting job descriptions out there. But let's collaborate today on that one. Thank you very much for listening today. There's also a QR code for that full report if you'd like that. That's available in the booth as well. Thank you so much for having me.